Today we're going to learn about what's called composition. That's something you have never seen before. So just a friendly reminder that when you have something in parentheses in this notation, it means you are to substitute this item into the G formula in X's spot. So in other words, I'm replacing X with whatever's in the parentheses. So I want to do 3 squared, which of course is 9. So then we would say G of 3 equals 9. When I put 3 into the G formula, my answer is 9. This is where it's going to get tricky. So I know that this can look intimidating because you have all these parentheses, but this actually is the function composition form. So this looks really weird. It kind of looks like the word golf without the L. This is a little symbol in mathematics. It's not an O per se. It's just like a little open dot that indicates like function composition. All right, so what's important is to realize that this and this are the same exact thing. It's just a notation. Now, the way we pronounce this is G of F of X. So think of it like if you're reading this format, every time you come across a parenthesis, you say the word of. G of F of X, and then we would stop. So what that means is you kind of work your way from inside to out. So look on the inner parentheses, okay, we have F of X. You have to replace this with the F of X formula, which is 2x. So it's almost like you're going to swap it out. So when we rewrite the problem, I'm going to keep the G and the parenthesis, but I'm not going to write F of X anymore. I'm going to write 2x. And then the rule is whatever's in the parenthesis has to go in for X and that formula. So this has a G, so I'll be now using the G formula, and I need to replace X with 2x. So what that would look like is, in parentheses, 2x, and then outside your parentheses would be that squared. Now, if you are to do 2x times itself, which is what squared means, you'll get 4x squared. So the answer is 4x squared. Then we do it the other way around. What if I switch the F and the G? So this notation, they would just reverse. This is F of G of X. That would be how you pronounce it. And a lot of math teachers will just say fog X because we're lazy. We don't like to say that over and over and over. So sometimes you hear teachers say fog X, but it means F of G of X. And it's going to be the same kind of thing. So I'm just going to rewrite my formulas here because there's a lot of ink up here and that can get confusing. So I look at the innermost, the G of X part, which is where my eyes would go to. And I look at my G of X formula. And I'm just going to replace them with each other. So when I rewrite the problem, I'm going to replace G of X with X squared. So I'm taking this part out and putting this part in. So now I have to take this X squared and put it into the F formula. So in other words, I'm going to replace the X in my F formula with X squared. Now, it's a good habit that whenever you are plugging in things into a formula, you put it in parentheses, so that's why it looks like this. But if you do 2 times x squared, you would just get 2x squared. So in this case, the parentheses didn't make much of a difference. So I just want to practice that because that gets a little confusing, and I understand that. Some kids pick it up quicker than others. You just have to keep on pushing through it until finally something's clicking there. So the first thing I recommend is that you rewrite it like this. So we're going to get F of G of X first, and we're going to write it just like this. And then we always look in the innermost parentheses. So I can see that G of X is inside. I want to replace that with the G formula. So keeping my F, keeping my parenthesis, but no longer will I write G of X. Instead, I'll write X plus 2. Then I take that X plus 2 and I put it in to the F formula in X's spot. Everything else will stay. The 2 will stay, the minus 5 will stay, but I will replace X with X plus 2. So it'll look like that. That's the hard part. After you do that, it's just your basic pre-algebra, distribute, combine like terms, and you're done. Then we're going to switch it. This time we're going to have G of F of X. So it'll look like that. Again, we look inside first. So I'm focusing on this F of X, and I'm simply going to replace that with the F of X formula, which is 2x minus 5. Then I'm going to take this 2x minus 5, and I'm going to put it into the G formula in X's spot. So instead of writing X plus 2, I'm going to use 2x minus 5 plus 2. And then I'm going to simplify it. So my answer would be 2x minus 3. All right, so we have a couple more here to practice. Some different functions, but same concept. So I'm going to rewrite my f of g of x in that parenthesis format. We're going to replace g of x with the formula for g of x, which is x minus 3. And then I'm going to take that x minus 3 and I'm going to put all that in x's spot. I'm going to keep the squared, I'm going to keep the plus 7. You can see those are outside the parentheses. It's just instead of x squared, I'm writing x minus 3 squared. Now, we're not allowed to distribute exponents in here, so if you write x squared minus 9 or x squared plus 9, it's wrong. The rule is you would write it twice in FOIL, or you can use the shortcut that we talked about earlier this year in class, where you square the first, multiply and double, and then square the last. So x squared, 3x and 3x is 6x, 3 squared is 9. Bring down my plus 7 and combine like terms, and I'm done. Then we're going to switch, and I'm going to put the g outside and the f of x inside. So we're going to focus on the inside here. It says f of x. So I will replace that with f of x's formula, which is x squared plus 7. Then I'm going to take that x squared plus 7, and I'm going to insert that into the g formula right here for x. Notice how I have the minus 3 still here. That's part of the formula. I'm just replacing x with whatever's in the parentheses. Combine like terms, and there's my answer. All right, so this time we're going to use a number instead of x, just so you can see how the difference in the two problems, how it differentiates. So same thing, except we're not writing x, we're writing 3. So I'm going to write f, parenthesis g, parenthesis 3. The first thing I need to do is get g of 3. So I look over here at my g formula. I'm going to plug 3 in for x, and when I do 3 squared, I get 9. So therefore, g of 3 would equal 9. So that 9 is going to go back in the formula. So instead of writing g of 3, I'm replacing it with that 9 that I got. Then I'm going to take this 9 and I'm going to put it in for x in the f formula. When I consolidate that, I get negative 23. Right, and we'll do it the other way around with the g outside. So we have g and then f and then 3. We're going to get f of 3 first. So I'm going to take my f formula, negative 3x plus 4. I'm going to replace the x with 3, and then I'm going to simplify it, and I get negative 5. So now I'm going to write g of that -5. And I take that -5 and I put it in for x in the g formula. -5 squared is 25. So what you're really doing, guys, is substitution. You're substituting a formula into another formula. So it's a process, but if you plan on taking calculus, this is definitely a valuable skill that you would need. All right, so I put these last problems on here because I think it's nice to have that little bit of challenge, and sometimes like just doing it repetitively helps make it sink a little bit more. So this time you have 3 functions, all right, but what we're doing stays the same. So the first thing I would do is write h parenthesis g parenthesis f of x. And when you have each parenthesis, we'll need an opposite parenthesis. So you'll actually have 3 sets of them in this problem. Remember, every time you say of is another parenthesis. All right, and we work our way in to out. So I want to focus right here on the f of x. All right, that is the innermost parentheses. And I will replace that with 6x squared. So here's my new problem. And I'm going to keep going. So I want to focus on the parentheses, what's inside, which is g of 6x squared, that whole thing. To compute that, I have to put 6x squared into the g formula. I'm just going to do the work for that right here so we don't have to keep track of it in our head as much. So you notice how the 7's here, the -2's here, it's just, it no longer says x. I replaced it with 6x squared. And then when we multiply, we get 42x squared minus 2. So that expression is going to go in my parentheses next to my h. So every time you plug in, it's basically like you lose a letter. So I plugged 6x squared in, I lost my f. When I took the 6x squared and put it in the g formula, I lost my g. Now I'm just down to my h. So I take this whole thing, 42x squared minus 2, and I'm going to put all of that in x's spot in the h formula. So it's going to look something like that. And when I simplify it, I'm going to get 168x squared minus 7. So replacing and then plugging in, and then replacing and then plugging in is kind of the game that we're playing here. Let's try it again, but let's switch the letters up. Let's put the G out front, and then the H, and then the F. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is replace f of x with the f of x formula. You see how I lost that f, and now I just have 2 letters. Then I'm going to focus on the h formula next. I need to do h of 6x squared. So I'm going to take that 6x squared and I'm going to put it in x's spot in the h formula. So it would read 4 parentheses 6x squared plus 1. Simplify it a little bit, and then we're going to take that formula that we just got and we're going to replace it in the parentheses. So we're no longer going to write the h, we're going to write our answer that we just got. And I got to plug in one more time. I have to put this into the g formula. So I'm going to keep my 7, I'm going to keep my -2, I'm simply replacing x, and then do a little bit of cleaning up. Now we'll do it one more time, but I'm going to use a 2 instead of an x. So my notation would look like this when it's rewritten. Again, we work from inside to outside, so we do h of 2 first. And this is something I could do in my head, you're just plugging 2 into this formula. 4 times 2 plus 1 is 9, and that's where the 9 came from. Then I need to get g of 9. So I'm going to put 9 into the G formula, and again, I'm going to do this in my head. 7 times 9 is 63. 63 minus 2 is 61. And then one more time plugging in, I'm going to take my 61 and I'm going to put it in for x in the F formula. Now when you're doing this, you just want to be careful. We do not multiply first. We square and then we multiply, because you would get a very different answer otherwise. So that's your final answer. And again, you would probably want a calculator for that. But you just want to make sure that, if depending on the calculator you use, you do your steps in the correct order.